So, really quick disclaimer before we get into the book today. My mic came unplugged after chapter 26 and before chapter 27, and I did notice before I started reading, so it's not like I had to do any voiceover magic over here. But my audio sounds like shit after I plugged my mic back in. I'm pretty certain I fixed it now. But it sounds like absolute fucking ass, and for that I am so sorry for anyone watching this video, listening to this video. I'm sorry. I tried to do some editing magic and it couldn't get any better. So yeah, I'm sorry. Please enjoy chapters 26 through 30 of A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer.
Chapter 26. Wren. There are children in the castle. They are loud, and seemingly everywhere all at once. They're delighted by the music that fills the halls, awed by the candles and pastries that appeared with the late afternoon tea. Freya seemed frightened at first, but eventually became charmed as well, her eyes wide as she tried to keep the children in order. I didn't think I would mind, but their ringing laughter proved to be too much of a reminder of my life before, and I sought the relative silence of the training arena, where Gray spars with Jameson. The only thing ringing here is steel on steel. Sweat slicks Jameson's hair and his breathing is heavy, but he has been holding his own. I expected his missing arm to affect his balance, but he seems to have learned to compensate. He fights like a soldier, aggressive and lethal on offense. Soldiers in the king's army are all trained to kill expediently. The royal guard was trained to disarm and disable first. It's making for an interesting match. Gray went easy at the start, but there's no restraint now. When Jameson falls back, Gray takes advantage, driving forward to hook the soldier's sword with the hilt of his own. The weapon jerks out of Jameson's hand. I expect that to be the end of it, but the soldier is quick. He snatches his dagger to block Gray's next attack. Gray raises a hand to call a stop. He nods at the blade on the ground. Again. They've been at this for over an hour. Jameson's labored breath fills the empty arena, but he nods and fetches his sword. Lilith's voice speaks from the shadows behind me. Prince Wren, I see you found a new toy for Commander Gray. He must be so pleased. I'm never truly surprised when she chooses to show herself, especially not now, when I've dared to allow myself the smallest bit of hope. I need to play this very carefully. And there are children in the castle. Lilith claps her hands lightly. Such fun. In turn, she stands in the darkness, barely visible. Hold up a second. I turn. She stands in the darkness, barely visible, aside from the spark of light on her eyes. You said you would not interfere, I say to her. I am not interfering. I am observing. You are interfering with me. Her eyebrows go up. But then she smiles mockingly. Your Highness, you do not seem yourself today. Have you not yet found true love with that tater... Big words. With that tater demalion, I think. Could be wrong. You know I have not. If this is my last season, I will not see Emberfall burned to the ground before there is nothing I can do about it. And what of you, your dear, sweet, broken girl? Lilith presses a finger to her lips, and her voice drops to a whisper. Oh, your Highness, has she already fallen for Commander Gray? Tell me, do you find it an odd bit of irony? Your seasoned fighter matched with a girl who can barely walk with grace? No, my voice grows bored. She has asked me to secure a meeting with you so that she may make her case for an early return home. A meeting with me? Lilith's voice hushed, and I cannot tell whether this impresses her or angers her. If it's anger, I need to draw her ire. Better to have it directed at me than at Harper. Yes, I lift a shoulder in a half-hearted shrug. I could see no reason to keep you a secret. Swords clash behind me. If you do not mind, my lady, I have interest in watching this match. Without waiting for a response, I return to the arena railing. My chest is tight. I promised to do this for Harper, but I feel as though I've sworn to arrange a meeting between a mouse and a lion. Lilith steps up to the rail beside me. but she says nothing. Gray and Jameson fight in the center of the arena, though there's no elegance to it now. The soldier's swordplay has taken on an air of desperation, but he still fights. Eventually Lilith says, "You should have mercy on this man, Prince Ren. Gray will run him into the ground." She is right, but I will not interfere. I am waging my own battle here on the sidelines. You wish to speak of mercy, Lady Lilith. I find that to be an odd bit of irony. I glance at her. If you have no interest in meeting with Harper, leave this place. I have no time for you. You will not dictate to me, Ren. Must I remind you of our roles here? The words hit me hard. I said something similar to Harper. Hearing them from Lilith makes me wish I could take them back. English, I cannot today. I need no reminder, I snapped, turning to face her. You've cursed me. You've cursed my kingdom. If you've grown bored with your game, end it. If you're unwilling to return Harper to her home, take your leave. Such fire, Prince Ren. It has been quite some time since I have seen your temper. I must say, I've missed your spirit. She lifts a hand and steps forward, reaching as if to touch my chest. A sword point appears against hers. You will keep your distance, says Gray. His breath is barely quick, and though sweat dampens his hair, his sword does not waver. Lilith scarcely spares him a glance. This does not concern you, Commander, she says. You will keep your distance. Gray does not move. His sword point does not either. Now she looks at him. Haven't you learned your little sword cannot truly kill me? I have learned it can hurt you. Yes, he has. It never ends well for him. Lilith moves her hand as if to touch the blade. I have no idea what she plans, whether she'll turn his sword to molten steel or drive it back into him, or maybe send it spinning to slice into both of us. But Jameson's sword appears at her throat, forcing her to lift her chin. She freezes. Her eyes shift to the soldier. You have no part in this. You want no quarrel with me. He stands strong. He's tired, but his sword does not waver either. I know an enemy when I see one. Her eyes, full of fury, lock on mine. I will destroy them both, she hisses. Stand down, I say to them at once. I don't take my eyes off of her. You will not harm my people. Their swords lower. Jameson takes a step back, but Gray remains at my side. Lilith steps closer to me. Tell your other man to give us privacy, or I will destroy him. Jameson, I say, go wait in the armory. He hesitates, then says, Yes, Your Highness, and withdraws. I have the power here. Lilith says, You are to remember that, Prince Ren. I have not forgotten. Why do you ask me to return the girl? It does no good for me to take her away. She does not love me. Her mother is dying. You have cursed me, not her. It seems cruel to deny her the final days with her mother. I keep my voice bored, disinterested. Anything more, and Lilith will use it against me. She considers this for a long moment. Finally, her eyes flick to Gray. Fetch the girl, Commander. Gray does not move. Lilith steps forward and walks her fingers up to his chest. I do not like being ignored, she whispers as her fingers reach the skin of his throat. I could carve the bones out of your neck while he watches. Harper has come to trust him, I say to her. She will not react well to his loss. You yourself swore not to interfere. Who says he needs to die? A fingernail presses into his skin and a pearl of red wells up. Commander, I say, go. Yes, my lord. He doesn't like it, but he'll obey. Gray heads for the passage into the palace proper. Lilith moves to stand in front of me. Irritation fills her eyes. I do not like this, she says. You seek to trick me somehow. This is not my request, and you said when Harper arrived, she is an unusual choice. If home calls her so strongly, I will not trap her here. She will never love me if I keep her prisoner. Lilith moves close enough that I feel the weight of her skirts against my leg. Ah, so you're altruistic now. I have heard men become so when the end is near. An attempt to right their wrongs, I believe. I say nothing. She folds her arms and gazes up at me. In anyone else, it would be a girlish gesture. There is part of me that will miss this. There is no part of me that will, I say. Her hands lift lazily as she traces a finger down the center of my chest. Are you sure, Prince Ren? With those words, the pain begins.
Chapter 27. Harper. I'm hiding from my lady-in-waiting. Freya and her children share the suite next to mine, and she has knocked at the door at least 3 times over the past hour. Shall I lay out a dress for this evening, my lady? Do you need assistance in the bath, my lady? My lady T has appeared in the drawing room. Would you like me to serve? The last offer was delivered with a mixture of awe and fear. I've declined all of it. I'm not used to people waiting on me, and playing princess to stop the destruction of the inn feels a whole lot different from letting someone brush my hair. A knock sounds at the door when I'm in the middle of rebraiding my curls. I'm fine, I call. I don't need anything. My lady, Gray's voice, low and serious, muffled by the heavy wood of the door. His Highness requests your presence. I tie off the braid and go for the door. He's tall and foreboding, pretty much as always. But right now, his face is a mask of tension. Something's wrong, I say. Lady Lilith has agreed to speak with you. Surprise kicks my heart into double time. Now? Yes. His voice indicates he is not happy about this. That makes me more nervous than any of Ren's warnings. I swallow. Let me get my boots. Gray leads me down the staircase where I followed Ren yesterday. I have to scurry to keep up with him, but I don't want to tell him to slow down. They're in the kitchen? He glances at me. The training area. Fear and excitement battle for space in my chest. In 10 minutes, I could be thrown back to Washington, D.C. I could be there for my mother. I could be there for Jake. This could all be over. In the back of my head, a twinge of guilt pricks at me. I'm leaving these people. I'm leaving Emberfall to its fate, and I'll never know what happened. Princess Harper of D.C. would vanish. The people here would be left to the curse and the monster. But this curse is not my fault. I have nothing to do with this place. I have no obligation to any of them. That guilt doesn't go away. In fact, it seems to cling harder. Gray, I catch his arm, my fingers digging into the leather buckled around his forearm. He's replaced the knife he lost to the man in Ian. The steel of the hilt is cold under my palm. Did Bren tell her what I want? He stops and looks down at me. The hallway is so quiet around us. Shadowed with flickering candlelight, she knows what you have asked. She has agreed to hear your request. Do you think she'll send me home? I think she will do whatever causes the greatest harm. An arrow of fear pierces right through my hope, any hope I had. To me or to Ren? To him, he pauses, and his voice is resigned, which may work in your favor. The warning in his tone is chilling, and nothing about those words is a relief. An ornate steel door sits at the end of the hallway, flanked by large oil lamps. Gray reaches for the handle and swings it wide. The floor turns to dirt, and we're in a huge open space. The walls to my left are lined with weapons, from swords and axes to lances and spears. The ceiling stretches 2 stories overhead, crossed with wooden beams and painted white. Late afternoon sunlight streams across the space from above. In the center of the arena stands the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She's almost too stunning to look at, from the shine of her black hair to the jeweled satin of her skirts. At her feet, on his knees, one hand braced in dirt, is Ren. He's spitting blood at the ground. The room full of gore flashes in front of my eyes. Every time he tried to warn me about Lilith, and I didn't understand. Stop, I scream. What are you doing to him? Stop it. I don't realize I'm running until Gray catches me. His arms wrap around my waist, pinning me against him, his voice low and quiet against my ear. She can kill you without thought, my lady. I struggle against him. My voice breaks with a sob. She's killing him. Killing him, the woman laughs. And even that is beautiful in a grating, shimmering way. Like, that's a big word. Or a word I've never seen before. Like discordant wind chimes, I would never kill him. She glances down at Ren. I don't see her move, but he jerks and makes a low kneading sound, then coughs more blood into the dirt. I had no idea she would be like this. Ren grips his abdomen down. Now, his labored breathing echoes through the arena. Stop, I gasp. Please stop. Remember this, girl. Remember how easily he falls.
There's no danger of me forgetting. I strain against Gray's hold. Lilith watches me. Her face is so young, her eyes clear and vibrant. She takes a step towards Ren, and he tries to recoil. No matter how much power the Crown Prince would have you believe he holds, it is truly meaningless. I redouble my struggles. I have no idea what I can do, but I know I can't just watch. Gray, I cry, we have to help him. He's too big, too strong. His arms encircle my ribcage, and my feet barely touch the ground. We cannot, he says. You believe our prince cannot take the pain, says Lilith. Do you hear that, Ren? She thinks you're weak. I shake my head fiercely. I think of whatever Jake has had to do to keep us safe. I think of the men who used to deliver reminders to my father. I didn't think I would ever see anything more terrible. I was wrong. Please, I say, he's not weak. Please stop. I assure you, I've had time to find his limits. This is nothing. I don't want to see his limits. Ren coughs again, wetly, and presses his forehead to the ground. He's coughed up enough blood that a dark pool sits beneath his jaw. Lilith reaches down and grabs a fistful of his hair, wrenching him somewhat upright. I expect him to look furious, desperate, terrified, maybe. Instead, he looks resigned. His eyes center on nothing. Not on Gray, and certainly not on me. Am I to understand you have a request for me, says Lilith. I can barely process her words. I can't look away from Ren. Please stop, my voice breaks. Please stop hurting him. That is your request? I freeze. That is not my request, but right now I'll do anything to stop this. Lilith jerks her head higher and he winces. She begs for you, Ren, and you asked me to send her home. You're such a fool. No, I was the fool. Make your request, says Lilith. I grow bored, girl. Ren knows what happens when I grow bored. She jerks his head back, and he makes a sound I never want to hear again. I don't know what's happening to my mother or my brother, but the unknown can't compete with what's going on right in front of me. I pry at Gray's arm, trying to use the buckles for leverage. He holds fast. Ren coughs again. Lilith reaches down with her free hand. A spot of blood appears where her fingers touch his neck. He jerks away, but she holds him in place. My hand slides across the hilt of one of Gray's throwing knives. I jerk the blade free. I hold it like Gray showed me, softer. I throw it straight at Lilith. The blade flies true, but only skims her skirts before driving into the dirt beyond. Lilith snaps her head around to look at me. I expect fury in her eyes, but there is only surprise. She lets Ren go, and he all but collapses into the dirt. His breathing rapid. His forehead isn't pressed to the ground now. He's turned his head to look at me. Lilith steps away from him and picks up the knife I threw. It hangs between her fingers, the steel swinging gently, catching the light. You tore my dress, she says. I was aiming higher, I say, but I'm still learning. Perhaps you need a demonstration. Lilith. Ren speaks, his voice harsh and broken. You cannot harm her. You swore to never interfere with the girls. Lilith keeps moving towards me. She's so graceful that she could be floating over the dirt floor of the arena. She threw a knife at me, Your Highness. I did not interfere. She did. Ren is lying in the dirt, crouching over a pool of his own blood. It makes Lilith's approach all the more terrifying. I think of my mother facing my father's harassers, and later cancer treatments. I know pain. So does my mother. I've lived it. I've watched my mother live it. I can get through this. I grit my teeth. Gray, release me. He lets go, but does not leave my side. Lilith's eyebrows go up. Impressive. Commander Gray will not even listen to me. I see you have brought him to heel. Her voice makes me want to flinch. I refuse to give her that satisfaction. He's not a dog. If one is not a dog, one is the master. And Gray is certainly not that. She pauses. Which role do you play, girl? Beats me, but I know which one you are, I glare at her, and I have another word for it, though. Lilith goes still. Any amusement melts off her face. Ren has made it to his feet. You cannot harm her, he says. You swore. I swore not to kill them, Lilith says. I swore not to interfere with your attempts at courtship. She steps closer to me. That, she says, is all I swore. Beside me, Gray draws his sword. She does not glance at him, and she makes no move toward me. Her eyes are fixed on mine. You wish to ask me for passage home. That is all. I swallow yes. But now I don't want to ask her for anything, and that is all you want. Yes, my voice is soft. Do you not see my power? She takes a step closer. What if I could end the torment of your broken body? No, says Ren. He staggers forward. Harper, what she offers will come at a cost. My body is not broken, I say. You amuse me, girl. What about your mother's body? Would you consider hers broken? I go very still. My eyes fill against my will. You know about my mother? I've been to see her. A heavy, vicious pause. She thinks I'm an angel. She believes I can ease her pain. Perhaps I can. No, says Ren. Harper, the cost will be greater than her loss. What about my brother? A tear spills down my cheek. Is my brother okay? Ah, your brother, the great enforcer. He is a man of violence. I find I admire his talents. He's alive? My voice breaks. Oh, he is alive, she says, but he is far from well. Please, I whisper, please let me help them. She steps closer to me. Her free hand reaches out to touch my cheek. I flinch and I expect to feel a flare of pain, but her palm is cool, almost motherly. You poor girl. You know nothing of this side. It is unfair that Prince Ren has trapped you in this curse. My breathing hitches. So you'll help me? No. Her expression tightens. If you wish to ask me for favors, you would do well to learn respect. Then she brings up the knife and swipes it across the opposite side of my face. The motion is so sudden and unexpected I don't realize she's done anything until she's already gone, vanished. Then I feel the sting. The burn as my tears find their way into broken skin. I slap my hand to my cheek. There's dampness, stickiness. I can feel the edges of my skin where she cut me. I whimper. I can't breathe. A wet trickle snakes down my neck. Ren has made his way to me. We need to get you into the palace. His voice is hoarse and worn. She cut me, I say. The pain is setting in now. A fire that lights up the entire side of my cheek. Ren catches my arm. There's blood streaked on his face. His jacket. Dirt clings to some of it. He looks as pale as I feel. Please, my lady, there's a lot of blood. I'm shaking, trembling so hard I can barely stand. My entire palm is slick and crimson. There are supplies in the armory, says Grace. Supplies? My own voice seems to be coming from a distance. It needs stitching. Ren's voice sounds like it's underwater. Slow and lethargic. My lady, please allow me to. I can't give permission. I can't do anything. My vision goes black. Chapter 28. Ren. I have never kept a bedside vigil. When I was young, I would have considered such a thing tedious and boring, if I ever considered it at all. I never needed to, and I likely do not need to now. Harper's wound would have been far worse. The knife could have caught her neck or sliced into the muscle of her arm. She could have lost her eye. Harper will wake. She will survive. She has a lady-in-waiting who would sit at her bedside. I do not need to be here. But I find I cannot leave. Iron Rose has never felt so quiet. The silence pressing in around us, broken only by the soft crackle of the fire, and Harper's slow, even breaths. The music from the great hall is silent tonight, and I am grateful. I study the slightly arced line that bisects her cheek, the 20 stitches holding the skin closed, an angry wound that seems out of place on the soft curve of her face. Her words from the arena keep repeating in my head, complete with the broken emotion in her voice. Please stop. Please stop hurting him. And Lilith's response. She begs for you, Ren. Instead of running from what she saw, Harper drew Gray's weapon. This feels like the cruelest season of all, to present me with a girl with the fierceness to stand at my side, yet with a home and family she needs to return to so badly. A log on the fire snaps, collapsing in a short burst of ash. Harper stirs, then takes a long breath and her eyes flutter open. She blinks a few times before focusing on me. Ren. Her voice is rough and worn. What? Where? She winces and lifts a hand to her face. I catch her wrist, but gently. Freya added an ointment for the pain, but she warned of infection. Be still, you do not want to pull at the stitches. So that really happened? Her voice is so small. Yes. She has not pulled away, and her wrist rests in my grip. Her pulse, a soft beat against my fingers. She stares at me, and all I can do is stare back at her. My meetings with Lilith have been a source of private shame for ever, an eternal hell shared only with Gray. And yet Harper has still not seen me at my worst.
I break the eye contact and look at the fire. Now that she is awake, waiting here feels like a mistake. I feel too raw, too exposed. Shall I call for Freya? No. She shifts and tries to roll toward me. I need to sit up. Go slowly. You've been asleep for hours. She slides her wrist out of my grasp and struggles to push herself upright. One arm presses against her abdomen and her eyes closed. Eventually her breathing slows. My head is pounding. A dose of sleeping ether, I say, though it could also be the loss of blood. Her skin seems more pale than usual. We worried you would wake during the stitching. She swallows and her eyes widen further, flicking past me to the hearth. The windows, the tapestries lining the wall. This isn't Arabella's room. No, this is mine. I pause. I worried the children being so near would not let you sleep. She looks down at herself. A sudden tension seems to grip her body. And this, I wasn't wearing this. Freya, I offered. She brought you a new chemise. Yours was quite soiled. Oh. For a moment, my emotions are unsure where to settle. I want to sit beside her and offer her my gratitude, to tell her how no girl has ever risked herself for me. I want to hide from the knowledge of what she saw. I want to fight, to prove that I am not vulnerable. She's seen the truth. Harper's eyes rise to meet mine. I want to see it. Do you have a mirror? I do. I rise slowly, and then out of habit extend a hand. I fully expect her to refuse. She does not. She takes my hand, her fingers wrapping around mine, then pulls herself to her feet. Once there, she does not let go. She stands a foot away from me. I want so badly to touch her face, to whisper my thoughts against her skin. This torture is nearly as bad as what I endured in the arena. Steady, I say softly. Enough. Her steps hitch behind me, and I lead her to my dressing room, where a mirror stands in a corner. When we stop in front of it, she stands in silence, her expression flat. Her hair is unbound, the curls cascading wildly over her shoulder. She stares, her eyes fixed on the wound. The incision is an angry red, but clean. The medicine Freya applied has forestalled any swelling. Harper lets go of my hand and moves closer until her breath faintly fogs the glass. She swallows and touches her fingertips to the mirror. The stitches are smaller than I expected. Your lady-in-waiting has a steady hand. She turns to look at me. Freya did it? She did. I pause. She was quite forceful, in fact. Yelled at Commander Gray. She yelled at Gray? Harper's eyes widen. Yanked the needle right from his hand. What did she say? I raise my voice into a littling imitation of Freya's. You will not put field sutures in my lady's face. She is not a common soldier. A ghost of a smile finds Harper's lips. That's amazing. She was quite protective. I pause. I thought she might drag him away by his ear. That makes her laugh. But then she gasps and raises a hand to her cheek. Now her eyes fill. She draws a long, quivering breath, then steadies herself. Come. I take her hand again, and I am equally shocked when she lets me. You should sit. I lead her to an armchair by the fire. Wine? She shakes her head. Water? Of course. A pitcher sits on a low table by the bed. I pour a glass for her, then a goblet of wine for myself. My movements are slow, and she watches me. Are you okay? The question is touching and humiliating at the same time. I ease into the chair beside her. Lilith is quite good at discovering ways to cause the most pain without causing lasting damage. Harper looks down into her glass. I thought she was going to kill you. Killing me would end her fun. I take a sip from my glass and feel the burn all the way down. I welcome the numbness that will trail behind it. She prefers to make me beg for death. Harper swallows that information. I've seen bad things before, but not, she falters and shudders. I couldn't. Her voice chokes to a stop. I couldn't watch. My lady, the emotion in her voice turns my own rough. What you did for me. I find I have no words myself, and I flinch away from her eyes. I regret that you have been injured so permanently. That seems to steady her. But at the same time, she sinks into herself a bit. Why didn't Gray do something? Why did he just stand there? In the beginning, Gray would try to stop her, but she finds creative ways to make him watch. Severed tendons, broken limbs. A favorite was to pin him against the wall of the arena on his sword. Stop. Please, Harper holds up a hand. Ah, forgive me. I look away. I have learned to draw and hold her attention. What she does to me is bad enough. I can endure it. I will not watch her visit pain on my people. We fall into silence again. Staring at the fire, I keep expecting her to ask me to leave, but she does not. After a while, motion flickers to my left, and I look over to find her dabbing at her cheeks. Tears have snaked their way down her face, collecting along the stitches to make them gleam in the firelight. My lady, I shift forward on the edge of my chair. Despite the tears, her voice is steady. I'm so stupid. You warned me, but I didn't realize what you meant. That is not stupidity, I say. It's something close. Her voice is flat and bleak. I ruined my chance. For me, she ruined her chance by trying to help me. You may get another. Lilith will return. She is never gone for long. What then? I can watch her do it again? She glares at me, her expression made more fierce by the injury to her face. I don't know what I can do to her, but I won't just stand by and watch it. I can't. What will you offer to stop it? What will you offer for passage home? Anything. She draws a hitching breath. God, Ren, No. My voice is sharp. She jumps. I put a finger over her lips. Never offer blindly, my lady. Not for your family. Not even for yourself. Certainly not for me. She stares at me over my hand until I feel foolish and pull away. Do not misunderstand, I say. My voice is rough. Whoopsie. Just dropped my bookmark. You bargain. When you bargain, you must know what you are willing to lose. If you offer all you have, be prepared for her to take it. Is that what you did? She asks quietly. I stare down into my glass and remember the first night when I thought Lilith was just another courtier. First thing in the morning when Lilith tore me apart. When she tore Grey apart. While I lay broken and bleeding on the floor, she threatened to tear my family apart. She threatened to start with my sisters limb by limb. In retrospect, I should have just let her. Now the guilt is mine alone to carry. Harper watches me, waiting for an answer. I drain the wine in one swallow. Yes. She thinks about that for a long time. When she speaks, her voice is quiet and level. So I've got a question. Right now, in this moment, I would grant her my kingdom if she asked. Go ahead. Do you still think your plan will work? I do. I have sent Grey and Jameson to the inn to see whether any soldiers from Sill Shallow have returned. Her eyebrows raise. So Grey hired him? Not yet. But Jameson seems willing and loyal. He believes Lilith is working with Karis Lauren. He offered to stand guard in the inn overnight. Though I do not anticipate more trouble from those soldiers. Why not? Because they did not attack last night. They could easily have returned with reinforcements. I suspect, however, they have retreated to send word to their queen and await further orders. That will take several days, likely weeks. It is the dead of winter in Emberfall, and Sill Shallow is on the other side of a mountain range. Harper considers this. Could Lilith get in the way? Absolutely. She already suspects I am trying to trick her somehow. Harper points at her cheek. How is this going to affect my part? Do you still wish to proceed as Princess of DC? I'm certainly not going to sit here feeling sorry for myself. She pauses, and some of the fire drains out of her eyes. Every time I go still, I think of my mother. I would undo it if I could, I say softly. I want so badly to reach out to her, but she has made her feelings quite clear. I swear to you. I believe you. Her voice is equally soft, but she straightens. Enough. Seriously, what are we going to do about this? I frown. I cannot decide if she's being self-deprecating or practical. Her eyes narrow. I'm sure you've thought of something. That we can tell the people of how the princess faced the evil sorceress from Sill Shallow and drove her away with minimal injury. Yes, my lady. I have thought of something. I pause. If you are still willing. I am. Then when Grey returns, I will have him send word to Silver Moon Harbor announcing our intent to visit. I would like to go the day after tomorrow if that suits you. It does. I study her, weighing my thoughts. She seems to think that her wound will make her less convincing as a princess. In truth, watching her now, she has never looked more like one. I have underestimated you again, I finally say. How? I have been waiting for you to wake for hours, I tell her. I was certain this would break you. She frowns and looks at the fire. It's not my first scar, Ren. I wasn't perfect before. I'll get over it. Then her eyes shift back to mine. Did you say you've been sitting here for hours? Yes. I pause. You are not angry about what Lilith has done. Oh, I'm furious, but not about my face. Then what? Her voice fills with steel. I'm mad I missed. Chapter 29. Harper. The morning we're due to leave for Silvermoon, I finally let Freya do my hair. She comes in with tea, and I don't have the heart to refuse her offer. I keep thinking about Ren's comment about how she was very protective. In my efforts to be self-sufficient, I've been pushing her away. Until I heard how she stood up to Grey. I didn't realize it was possible to be so strong and yielding at the same time. So I sit at my dressing table in Arabella's room, and Freya stands behind me, silently running the brush through my curls. The baby is swaddled and sleeping in the room next door, but I haven't seen the other children. Freya's skin looks clean scrubbed and her eyes are bright. The near panic that's been in her expression since I met her is gone. Yesterday she was still wearing her clothes from the inn, but today she's in a lavender dress with a light white lace bodice, and her hair is in twin plaits, which she's pinned up into a twist. You look really pretty, I say. Her hands go still and she blushes. My lady, thank you. She offers a curtsy. I was borrowing clothes from Evelyn while I stayed at the Crooked Boar, but those are not appropriate in the palace. I asked the guardsman where the Queen's ladies stored their garments. We fall into silence again, and she resumes brushing. I thought it was going to make a frizzy mess, but she used something from one of a dozen bottles scattered across the table, and the curls relax. The motion of the brush is soothing, a reminder of childhood. When my mother would do the same thing, without warning, my eyes fill. I press my fingers to my face. Oh, Freya stops brushing immediately. Did I hurt you? No. I barely recognize my own voice. No, I'm fine. But I'm not. I can't stop crying. My shoulders are shaking before I'm ready for it. Freya takes my hand. Hers is warm, her grip strong. Shall I send for His Highness? No. No, I'm fine. My voice breaks, and it's obvious that I'm not. She puts a hand on my shoulder and rubs gently, moving close. My hand is still gripped on hers. She says nothing, but her closeness is more reassuring than anything I've felt in days. I think of home, and realize it's more assuring than anything I felt in months. My mother is dying, I say. I'm sure this isn't part of Ren's plan, but I can't keep melting into a puddle, I'm going to completely unravel. My mother is dying, and I can't be there, and I just keep thinking. I keep thinking she's going to die before I can say goodbye. Oh, my lady, Freya wraps me up in her arms, and then I'm sobbing into her skirts like a child. This isn't like with Ren or Grey. I can wrangle my emotions into compliance in front of them. But Freya is all kindness and warmth, and it feels so good to be held that I allow myself to sink into it. She keeps smoothing my hair, whispering nonsense. Eventually, reality catches up to me, and I can't be Harper today. I have to be the Princess of DC. I draw back. I've left a huge damp spot on her dress. I'm so sorry, I say. She uses a thumb to brush the tears from my cheeks. Here, she says quietly, though her voice is firm. She strengthens my shoulders. Sit. Allow me to finish. I obey. The brush finds my hair again, and her hands slow and sure. When my sister died, Freya said quietly, it was very sudden. I had no time to say goodbye, but she knew I loved her. I knew she loved me. It is not in the moment of passing that is most important. It is all of the moments that come before. I meet her eyes in the mirror. Your sister died? She nods. I took in her children. The thought of having 4 mouths to feed was overwhelming, but we have survived. Surprise knocks some of the sorrow out of my chest. Those are your sister's children? Baby Olivia is mine. She had just been born when my sister was killed. I lived with Dara and her husband, Peter, in the farmhouse to help care for Dahlia and Davin and little Edgar. A pause. But then the monster attacked Woven Hollow, and Dara and Peter were there to trade goods, and suddenly the children were all mine. The monster. Every time someone mentions it, the fear in her voice is undeniable. Yes, my lady. Freya hesitates. When the men came to raid the farmhouse, I thought fate had finally found us all. But then you came to our aid. And now we are here, in this enchanted palace. She pauses. I do not presume to know what you face, my lady. I know nothing of your land, your customs. But I do know your bravery and kindness seem to have no bounds. I have no doubt your mother knows that too. My throat tightens. You're going to make me cry again. Well, at the very least, hold still so I can do your plate. That makes me smile. I'm glad you're here, Freya. As am I, my lady. She begins to braid, her fingers quick and sure. I'm always surprised to discover that when the world seems darkest, there exists the greatest opportunity for light. The dress Freya selects for me is navy blue, but every inch of stitching is shot with silver, with tiny diamond-like stones affixed along the bodice. A blue overskirt spills from the waist, split at the hip to reveal a cascade of petticoats. Beneath the dress, I'm wearing calfskin leggings and heeled boots that lace to my knees. She arranges my curls into a loose, loopy braid that falls over my shoulder, with jeweled hairpins arranged at regular intervals. Then she dusts dark charcoal across my eyelids. When I stand in front of the mirror, a stranger stares back at me. This is the kind of dress little girls dream of, but my eyes center on the stitched line across my neck. It's healed to the point of being sore and itchy, but there's no swelling left. Now it's just ugly, my reminder that actions have consequences. I put a hand over my cheek, hiding the imperfection. Freya takes my wrist gently and lowers it. Proof of your bravery. She says, nothing less. She holds a tiny stretch of twisted wire adorned with a few jewels. I think it's a necklace until she reaches to slide it into my hair. Freya, I whisper, this is all too much. She gathers a length of leather and fur from the chest at the end of the bed and holds it up. Are you too warm? You can wait to add the coat once you've crossed it through the woods. That wasn't what I meant at all, I swallow, until this moment. Princess Harper was something to consider in theory. Right now, Princess Harper is looking back at me from the mirror. A hard knock sounds at the door. My lady, the horses have been brought to the courtyard. Gray. He's been running errands for Ren, so I haven't seen him since we confronted Lilith at the arena. Freya moves to the door and pulls it open. The princess is ready. He steps into the room. I feel the instant his gaze stops upon me. His eyes give away nothing. Some dynamic has shifted between us. I'm not sure if it has to do with the way he held me back while Lilith was torturing Ren, or the way I stole his knife to stop her myself. Either way, it feels prickly and I don't like it. I smooth my hands along the bodice. Is it good enough? Good enough. His expression doesn't change. You have me wishing I had more guardsmen. He glances at Freya. The princess needs a weapon. I fetch a belt with a dagger. There are several in the chest. Oh my gosh. The princess needs a weapon. Fetch a belt with a dagger. There are several in the chest. Yes, Commander. She scurries to the closet. I found a dagger. We should give people a reason to think twice before approaching you. That's both awesome and terrifying. Freya returns with a stretch of dark leather, along with a simple dagger. A few jeweled flowers decorate the hilt, matched by a stitched vine of blue flowers on the sheath. Just as she hands it to me, the baby begins crying from the next room. She looks apologetically at me. My lady, go, I say. It's fine. I begin wrapping the straps around my waist, but there's just too much length and no buckle. I stop and look at Gray. You know I have no idea what I'm doing with this. Would you help me? He nods and puts out a hand for the belt, then moves close to slide the leather around my waist, wrapping it double. His deft fingers thread the leather into a knot that lies flat at my hip, pulling the light weight of the dagger along my upper thigh. The effort puts him close enough for us to share breath, but his movements are quick and efficient. He doesn't quite meet my eyes. Thanks, I say softly. Yes, my lady, he pauses. And I've been ordered to stay at your side today. Jameson will accompany His Highness. Gray doesn't sound like he approves of that arrangement, but I can't tell which half bothers him, guarding me or not guarding Ren. Either way, I don't like this hum of tension between us. Are you mad I stole your knife? I say quietly. You are welcome to every weapon I carry. His voice is level. I showed you how to throw knives because you asked, not because I expected you to use them. I'm glad you showed me, I say. I got her to stop. His eyes flick to my cheek. At what cost? Warmth heats my face. Gray. What she was doing to him, it was awful. No one deserves that. My voice tightens. Some mixture of anger and fear and regret. Ren told me he ordered you not to stop her. But I don't know how you can do that. I'd do it again, and I will if I have to. I can take a scar. And if she cuts your throat? I set my jaw. I'm not apologizing for what I did. I seek no apology. I understand your motives. Then what do you seek? Your trust. I don't have an answer for that. He speaks into my silence, and his voice is just as hard as mine is. His Highness would like to arrive at Silver Moon by mid-morning, my lady. My mood has soured, and I feel completely off balance. I grab the jacket and wish I could storm out of the room with an even step. Though the boots Freya found in the closet are better than what I wore before, the dress sways as I walk down the empty hallway, my booted heels clicking on the marble unevenly. Gray follows beside me, but slightly behind. He moves like a ghost. Before we reach the staircase, I can't take it anymore. I round on him. Look, I do trust you. I trusted you before I trusted Ren. You know that. His eyes give nothing away. You trust me not to harm you. Yes, obviously. Do you trust me to keep you safe? I suck in a breath, then hesitate. That is the trust I mean, Gray says, and finally there is anger in his tone. You are the Princess of DC, he says, and you are an ally. You are to ally with His Highness. I will obey your order. But that's different, I say. It's not real. It is real enough here in Emberfall, he says. My obligation, indeed the very oath I swore, is to lay down my life in favor of his, and now in favor of yours, my lady. But not with Lilith. How could you stand there and watch that, Gray? How could you? Do you truly think it costs me nothing? His voice is sharp, but torment sparks his eyes. I have seen her actions countless times, and to a much greater extent. I would try to stop her every time. To my surprise, emotion builds in my chest. Every time. Man. Every time, Gray. I wouldn't care what he ordered me to do. I wouldn't care what she did to me. He told me what she's done to you. I'm not even sure that would be enough to stop me. If His Highness allowed it, I would take her provocation by tenfold. I would fight her until I had no breath left to breathe. His voice turns almost lethal, and in the dim light of the hallway, Gray's eyes seem to darken. My duty is to bleed so he does not. And now, he says, my duty is to bleed so you do not. Those words are chilling. I swallow. What you have agreed to do is larger than you think. Your life is no longer yours to sacrifice. I know, I whisper. You do not know. He's genuinely angry now. Or you would not have risked your life so carelessly as if your death carries no consequences. You would not. Commander, Ren's voice by the stairs. I jump. His tone isn't sharp, but Gray snaps to attention. His expression evens out so quickly that you'd never know we were having a heated discussion. I don't know how much Ren heard, but as he approaches, I'm guessing it was a lot, or at least enough. Shame has formed a lump in my chest, especially because I know he's going to lay into Gray or order him to apologize to me or something I won't be able to take. Wait, I say to Ren. My voice is half broken and I'm a breath away from crying. I look up at Gray. I'm sorry, I say. I didn't understand. I'm sorry. He lets out a breath and glances away. His voice is regretful. A princess should not apologize to a guardsman. I'm Harper, I say to him, and I'm apologizing to you. He hesitates, then nods, as you say. Tension still wavers in the space between us. I wish we'd had 5 more minutes to play this out to the end. Is all well? Says Ren. Yes. I inhale and turn back to face him, and all that breath leaves me in a rush. A moment ago, I was embroiled in an argument with Gray. Now I'm really looking at Ren. It's like he stepped out of a fairy tale. He wears no armor, but instead a jacket of blue and black brocade with a high collar. From what I can glimpse at his neck, it seems to be lined with the same fur as the jacket hanging over my arm. Slender stretches of silver are twisted in an intricate design along his collar, matched by a similar metalwork on his black leather gauntlets and the hilt of his sword. Subtle, but there's no question he's the prince. Or maybe that's just Wren himself. He could stand there in a potato sack and he'd probably look like royalty. All is well, I finish. But then I realize he's staring at me too. A blush crawls up my cheeks and I smooth down my skirts. Do I look like a princess? He steps forward and takes my hand. I think he's going to lead me towards the stairs. But instead he bows low and kisses my hand. You look like a queen. My face feels like it's on fire. The rest of me too. I have to clear my throat twice to speak. And even then my voice is rough. I understand you wish to reach Silvermoon by mid-morning? I do. He glances past me. And I can see him weighing whether to pry. I've asked Commander Gray to stay by your side today, but I can ask Jameson if you prefer. No. I swallow and glance back at the guardsman. I trust Gray to keep me safe. We head south, the sun to our left. Snow and slush have been trampled down to reveal a rutted gravel that's clearly seen a lot of traffic already. Trees line the road on either side, the remnants of the forest that encircles Iron Rose. But ahead, the trees give way to a long sloping valley. Snow glitters on homes and farms that seem small in the distance. Well beyond that, the sun gleams on what must be water. Wren has been quiet for most of the ride, but I'm having trouble figuring out his mood. I keep my voice low and shift my horse closer to him. You think the people will be happy you're making an alliance with a country they've never heard of? Think my people will be happy I'm trying to save them from invasion. He pauses. His voice turns grave. Jameson said the battle at Wilmington was brutal and most lost their lives. Their regiment was destroyed, their encampment burned to the ground. It seems the soldiers of Sil Shallow do not intend to simply overtake my kingdom, but to raise it. I swallow. You said there were 1,000 soldiers in a regiment. Wren looks at me, and the expression in his eyes reminds me of the anguish in Gray's voice in the hallway. Yes, my lady. They accepted no surrender, says Jameson. Men who tried were slaughtered before they could raise their arms. Wren looks over at me, and for the first time I begin to understand the weight of what he's hoping to accomplish. We are lucky to have secured the alliance of DC, he says. Our soldiers stand ready, I say. These are practice words, suggestions from Wren, but my voice sounds hollow when confronted with the deaths of real men. My father awaits my order. We will fight alongside, says Jameson. Contrary to the regret over the loss of fellow soldiers, his voice is full of anticipation. He loops his arm through his reins and hits his chest with his fist, for the good of Emberfall. To my right, Gray does the same. Passion rings in their voices, strong enough that I feel it right to my core. Wren hits his chest too, for the good of all. His voice carries an echo of the same passion, but something else, something closer to sadness. Before I can puzzle it, though, Gray frowns and points ahead. Ever vigilant, a covered wagon on the road, 3 horses. He glances at Jameson. Check it out. Yes, sir. Jameson's horse springs forward, hooves spraying slush. Gray stares after him. I had almost forgotten what this was like. Having someone to order around, I say? No. Wren looks past me at his guard commander, being part of something bigger. Gray nods. Yes, exactly that. Wren shakes his head. I'm not sure I ever realized. He draws up his reins. I do not wish to treat my people as a threat. He nods ahead toward the wagon. Come, let us greet them. Chapter 30. Wren. We smell the harbor long before we reach Silvermoon. The scent of fish throws a faint metallic tang into the air. It's 10 times worse in the summer. I remember I would ride with my father to inspect our naval fleet or to receive dignitaries from other ports, and the stench of fish and sweat and dirt is ingrained in my brain. The harbor sits at the northmost point of Rushing Bay, bordered by land that stretches south on either side for over 100 miles, which makes the bay and Silvermoon Harbor easily defensible from the south. When the creature made itself known, and I closed our borders, I sent the naval fleet to stand guard at Cobalt Point, where the bay opens to the ocean. I have no idea whether my ships continue to stand guard at Cobalt. After bringing word of our visit, Gray reported that Silvermoon Harbor stands in better shape than he anticipated. Their proximity to the sea would have kept them well fed and provided ample resources for trading with towns farther off. Even still, I offer silver coins and good tidings to everyone we meet along the road. For those who look in need of food, I tell them to come where the south road meets the King's Highway in 2 days, and I will have a wagon of food and supplies waiting. For those who look well fed and able, I tell them we are seeking to rebuild Emberfall's army. At my side, Harper has been quiet and aloof, reciting the lines I've given her to perfection, while adding her own flair. The King of DC longs for another victory. The people of DC are eager for trade with those of Emberfall. The children of DC have so much to learn from Emberfall's rich and civilized culture. The mark on her cheek, the dagger at her wrist, the cool edge to her words. She makes the perfect warrior princess from a different land. What I know is restless uncertainty comes across as distant composure. Before long, the city wall looms ahead. The gates closed and guarded. A shadow flickers in the guard tower at the top of the wall, and after a moment, bells peal out, ringing loudly and repeated bong, bong, bong. We've been spotted. The gates draw open. What does that mean? Says Harper. The bells. Royalty approaches, I say. They ring differently for different things. You will hear them at every city we visit. Her jaw is tense. She says nothing. Are you nervous, my lady? My voice is light, and the question almost teasing, but the words are genuine. Tension has begun a slow, lazy crawl up my spine as well. We have one guard and one untested soldier. I have a bow strapped to the saddle and a sword at my hip. I can already see at least 100 people lining the street leading through Silvermoon, drawn by the bells in my former life. In my former life, they would have been no cause for concern. I would have been traveling with a dozen guards at least, if not more, while in my father's company. Now, if this crowd were to turn against me, or to turn against my family's abandonment of them, it would not take many to have us outnumbered and dead on the cobblestones. Not nervous. Harper draws the words out, but meeting people on the road feels different from that. She nods ahead to the still gathering crowd. I lean closer and drop my voice. I would be surprised if anyone dares to approach. It was once said that approaching the royal family without invitation was a good way to lose your head in a street. Her head snaps around. What? Really? The royal guard has quite the reputation. I look across at Gray. Isn't that true, Commander? We take few chances, his voice almost bored, or maybe distracted. His eyes are watching the crowd. When we draw near, 3 armed men and a woman on horseback separate from the crowd and ride through the archway, blocking the road and therefore the entrance. One man and the woman wear armor and carry as many weapons as Gray and Jameson, while the other 2 men ride in front, and at first glance, their attire fits well, sporting threads of silver and gold. But as we draw closer, the men's faces are drawn and wary, but they may not be armored. But they are armed. I don't recognize either of them. Many of the local lords ran or died when the creature first unleashed its terror on the land's neighboring Iron Rose. The Grand Marshal, my lord, says Gray, his voice low, and his sensual. For a moment I regret sending word of our visit. This man could carry nothing but resentment for the crown, for a royal family who has seemingly abandoned them for years. Tension builds in the air between our party and theirs. I'm tempted to draw to a halt, or to demand an expression of their intent. I'm tempted to send Gray across the remaining 40 feet of the road to inquire as to our reception here. The people behind their representatives are quiet, peering out of the opening. Clearly, Harper isn't the only one harboring uncertainty. To my left, Jameson's breathing is steady, a soldier used to following his commanding officer into war. It's reassuring. I have 2 men to fight at my side, and that's a 100% improvement over yesterday. We ride forward. At 20 feet, the 2 leading men dismount from their horses, followed by their 2 guards. They stride forward. They draw their swords. Gray's hand finds the hilt of his own. Harper sucks in a breath. But then the men and their guards fall to one knee. Their swords are laid on the stone road in front of them. Your Highness, says one, welcome. The people of Silvermoon have long awaited your return. We greet you with great relief, says the other. You and your lady. Beside me, Harper lets out a slow breath. I do the same. Rise, Marshal, I say. We thank you and your Central for the kind welcome. I have to pause to make sure my voice gives away nothing. We are eager to visit with the people of Silvermoon. They rise and mount their horses, leading us toward the city. The Grand Marshal is a large man my father's age, with thick graying hair and a stern yet kind demeanor. He compliments Harper, then begins listing the achievements of Silvermoon over the past few years. The ways they've bolstered the city's defense, including defense against the creature, which tightens something in my gut. But he seems anxious to please. His welcome feels genuine. Like with the moment on the road, I remember what this feels like to be part of something. As we pass through the gates, the people yield the road. They kneel, they call out, "All hail the Crown Prince." It is not the first time I've been welcomed this way. It is the first time it has ever meant so much. We leave the horses at the livery so we can walk through the harbor's marketplace on foot. The Grand Marshal offers to escort us with his guards, but he would undoubtedly have questions about the alliance, about the fate of the royal family. I am not ready to feed a larger meal to the town gossip quite yet. Once we step into the fray, however, I nearly regret the decision. The aisles are thick with people, voices raised to bicker and barter and trade. Bodies press in closer than I am ready for. A stray dagger could be anywhere. Harper suddenly grips my hand. Gray knows his job, however. He steps forward and says, "Make way for the Crown Prince and his lady." A path opens up before us. Men bow, ladies curtsy. But not all. Some stare. The stares are not friendly. Harper leans close. I'm sorry, I'm so nervous. Sharing my own tension will do nothing to calm hers. I glance over. You seem resilient as ever. I'm not used to so many people staring at me. How regrettable. You surely deserve the attention. I gently move her hand from mine to the crook of my arm. I lean in close to speak softly along her cheek. I need my sword hand free. You are not the only one who is nervous, my lady. Surprise registers in her eyes, and she gives a small gasp. I half expect her to let go, but she doesn't. Her hand holds tight at the bend of my elbow. The cobblestone walkway between rows of vendors and tradesmen has been swept free of snow, and large steel barrels of burning coal sit every dozen feet to the warm air. Every stall boasts something different. Silk scarves, hammered silver pendants, beaded hair combs, swords in one booth, knives in another, frayed pendants advertising each artisan's trade wave in the cool breeze. I am glad for the open air of the marketplace because the press of people is actually quite claustrophobic. People continue to yield a path, but many do so grudgingly. Men meet my eyes and hold them. It pricks at my pride. My father never would have tolerated it. He would have made an example of one, and no others would have dared such insolence. My father would have had 24 guards at his back. I have 2. I lean toward Harper again and keep my voice easy. What do you think of Silvermoon, my lady? I'm trying not to stare too much. Stare all you like. Does anything catch your fancy? All of it does. Name anything and it's yours. I say this more loudly, and every merchant's head swivels in our direction. You don't need to buy me off, Harper says under her breath. I've already come this far. Not buying you off. I'm buying them. And I want to spend silver. Give my people confidence. I pause and raise my voice again. Silk, you say? Come, let us look. We spend a small fortune. Vendors have been ordered to deliver bolts of fabric, dozens of dresses, endless trinkets in silver and gold, and blown glass. And a pile of painted wooden toys Harper chose for the children. Everything she touches, I buy. When we pass a stall offering beer and spirits, I buy around for everyone nearby. The men who scowled at me earlier have disappeared, and any uncertainty has vanished from the air. Even Harper has relaxed into the role. Vendors fawn over her. Women whisper behind their hands, but their eyes are curious, not mean-spirited. Children offer baskets of sugared nuts and warm biscuits, and no one dares to crowd our path now. Gray and Jameson seem more at ease, giving us more space instead of hovering quite so close. Underneath it all, the uncertainty plagues me. I look at each face and imagine soldiers from shallows slicing through them with a broadsword. Worse, I look at each face and imagine my creature slashing through them with claws. By late afternoon, we're nearing the back part of the marketplace, where the stalls and aisleway are larger and many vendors offer games of chance and entertainment. The scents of salted meats and roasted vegetables carry from the next aisle over, where the marketplace will spill out into a large open area for eating and gathering. Larger weapons are sold back here, too. Swords, shields, longbows, and the like. My eyes linger on the bower's stall. The long arcs of wood, ranging in color from bright and polished to amber and dark, rich ebony. This stall is larger, with a long channel set up alongside where shoppers can test a bow before purchase. Harper follows my gaze. You haven't bought anything for yourself. There is nothing I need, except time, and I haven't yet seen that for sale. Well, technically, I don't need anything you just bought. Well, technically, I don't need anything you just bought either. The bower notices our attention, then turns to pull a long, slim bow from the wall. Reddish-brown wood gleams from end to end. The grip is wrapped in braided leather. He offers it on outstretched hands. Do you care to take a shot, your highness? Or perhaps your lady would? This is the finest bow I have. Wood from the Vundum forest. I inhale to decline, but Harper looks up at me. Can I do it? Will you show me? Yes, of course. We draw a crowd almost immediately. 24 people form a circle. Gray stands beside us, his back to the stand, and tells Jameson to make sure the people keep their distance. Are all these people going to watch? Harper whispers. The bower offers a slim wrist guard, and I take her hand to buckle it around her forearm. Nothing generates interest like the opportunity to watch a royal fail at something. Arrows lie along the edge of the front of the narrow range, with a wooden target at the end, maybe 30 feet away. I take an arrow, knock it on the string, rest it on the shelf with the bow. Watch, I tell her. Straight arm, draw back to the corner of your mouth, and shoot. I do as I say. The string snaps hard, and the arrow flies straight into the center of the target. That earns me a smattering applause. Harper's eyes are wide. Way to keep the pressure down. I smile. A child could hit the target at this distance. I hold out the bow and another arrow. Give it a try. She takes the bow and arrow, then a long, slow breath. Her eyes center on the bullseye. She finds focus so easily. The knock of the arrow lands on the string like she's been shooting all her life, and she raises her arm to pull it along the bow. She's so confident about it that I nearly miss the fact she's resting the arrow on her fingers instead of the bow shelf. I step behind her and close my fingers over her drawing arm before she can let go. Was I doing it wrong, she says. If you want to shear the fingers off of your hand, you were doing it exactly right. I adjust the placement of the arrow, matching my stance to hers. My arm rests below her forearm, my fingers closing around her fingers to hold the bow. Here, touch your mouth with the string. The fingers brush her lip. When her fingers brush her lip, mine do as well. Her body is warm and close in the circle of my arms. The crowd behind us has melted away. The moment centers on this one task. Whenever you're ready, I say softly, release the string. Her fingers release, the string snaps, and the arrow goes flying. It buries itself in the upper left quadrant of the target. The crowd applauds again. She turns to me and smiles. I did it. I like this better than knives. Will you show me again? I find it amusing that she keeps asking, as if I would not do this 1,000 more times. She seizes another arrow and lines it up on the bow, more sure this time. I lift her elbow to straighten her aim. She hits closer to the bullseye this time. Her eyes are bright and she's a little breathless. Again? Of course. I would give anything to touch her face again. Her chin, the soft curve of her lip. I settle for gently straightening her aim. She hits the target again and smiles up at me. I love this. Again? As many as you like, my lady. When she turns to shoot, she shifts closer to me. Whether by accident or intent, I'm not sure, but I can feel her warmth. When I place my hand on her arm, I leave it there. She does not pull away. Maybe fate finally found me worthy of mercy. Just as I have the thought, a weight slams into my midsection and I'm thrown against the side of the bower stall. And then I hear Harper scream. Thank you guys for sitting and reading chapters 26 through 30 of A Curse So Dark and Lonely with me. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one.